We are so fortunate that the music that we hear on Sunday morning is original compositions of Rachel's, and grateful that she shares that gift with us. So welcome to Unity's 5 Principles. This month we're spending time exploring those principles that we say that we believe, the things that are most important to us to guide our way in unity. And we began with the first principle of God is absolute good and present everywhere. That energy that moves through the universe. That which is endless and boundless. And that which is intimate as our breath. That's the transcendent and personal nature of God. Both this and. So intimate that we can feel it in our breath, and yet so transcendent that it encompasses infinity, so far beyond what we could ever imagine. That energy, regardless of what name you use to call it, God, divine mind, spirit, universal love, source. It's all the same energy. It's the essence that is everywhere and in all things. There is nothing that is outside of that presence of God. Nothing at all. And then we go to the second unity principle is you and I. We are made of that divine substance, that essence of God, that which is unchangeable good. Therefore, we are inherently good. What a joy it is to recognize that in ourselves, all of us. There is no one or no thing that is left out of that divine essence which is good. There's nothing left out of it. And we remember that not all people are functioning from that high Christ consciousness. You see, we've been given free will. And we get to choose how we think, how we act, how we move in the world. So not everyone is tuning in to their Christ nature. Not everyone is living that. There are many people who are exercising free will in a way that causes suffering and pain. So we take to heart the words of Joseph to his brothers in Genesis 50, verse 20. You meant it for evil, but God uses it for good. And we can hold that to be true in our experiences. So today we move to that third unity principle, that we create our experiences by the activity of our thoughts. Everything that is in the manifest world begins with a thought. And we have 60 to 80 thoughts a day. So you and I live in this field of infinite potential, unlimited substance. And from that substance we choose and we pick and we draw to create our experiences. So if I'm not enjoying what I'm experiencing, I work at changing my thoughts. We indeed yield that kind of power in our life. We can choose our thoughts. And we hear that reiterated in Romans 12:2. Be ye not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Those thoughts that we hold in our mind with consistency and enthusiasm, they tend to come into manifestation. They come into being. And we hear that in Proverbs 2. Proverbs, as a man thinketh, so is he. Now we will apply that to all genders in modern days, because as we think, so are we. As we see the world, is how the world becomes. Now you might be saying, we create everything? I created that car accident. This child created the illness that they're experiencing. We created this pandemic. So let's add a little perspective to this principle. I can't talk about this idea of creating our thoughts, of creating our life with the activity of our thinking without saying this, and this is very important. I want you to hear this clearly. We do not create in isolation. We do not create alone. We don't create in isolation. We co-create our life experiences with divine mind, with God, with the Spirit. We don't create in isolation. We co-create with our God and all 7 billion plus people that are on the planet. Now, even in this room, we will have a myriad of different opinions and thoughts floating around all at the same time. So imagine the ethers filled with the thoughts of 7 billion plus people. We are contributing to the experiences of all other people, and all other people are contributing to our experiences. We call that the consciousness of the collective. And there's a couple of things I want to say about that. And it's my belief that we have chosen to be here on this realm at this time. Or at least we've agreed to be here at this time. So what we experience depends on the vibration of our thinking. Quantum physics tells us that all of our thoughts have a certain vibration, a certain movement to it. We yield our experiences that match the vibration that our thoughts move. So if I'm thinking way down here, those basement thoughts, I can't be living in the penthouse. If I want to live in the penthouse, I have to have penthouse thoughts. I have to have those thoughts that are moving and vibrating. But we can make a change in our environment, in our daily experiences, by the activity of our thinking. And I also believe this, that this human form, this pandemic, this day that we're experiencing, this gathering that we're having right now, is temporary. It will all end. And yet what is eternal is our soul. And our soul connection, one with another. That soul connection with the great divine. So trust the place that you're in. Trust that you are in this place, right here, today, for a purpose. Do what is yours to do. Co-create a life that is good and wonderful for you, and a life that is good and wonderful for all beings. So I don't do this often, but I need to have a soapbox moment. My soapbox. Now you might not like hearing this, but we have created this experience that we're in right here and right now. This pandemic, we have created it. Our collective consciousness has made room for dis-ease and discord. And the good news is, just as we have created this, we can lift up and out of this into something better. Once we are willing to give up our thoughts of anger, anxiety, judgment, disappointment, because those are all fear thoughts. Those are basement thoughts. We cannot move to the penthouse with basement thoughts. So over here we have people saying, you snowflakes, you're like a bunch of sheep following anybody, anywhere, wearing your masks everywhere you go. You're living in fear. And over here we have people saying, oh, those with conspiracy theories, oh, those crackpot people, they don't want to vaccinate, they don't want to wear masks. We're all going to be sick with COVID. Stop it. Stop it now. Stop it already. All of that judgment, all of that fear, both of those extremes are fear. Until we, and when I say we, I mean me as well. Until we stop those kinds of thoughts from building and growing in our mind and pouring out into our families and our world, this is where we're going to stay, because you can't live in the penthouse with basement thoughts. So when we move to love, compassion, and kindness, we can move out of that basement and into the penthouse. And we all have a contribution to that. So mind your thoughts. Pay attention to what comes after, oh, those people, or they. Notice what words come. We've got to stop that now. Because where we are right now is tearing us apart as people. Where we are now is tearing us apart as friends, and as families, and as community. And we don't have to stay here. We can move from this place. Okay, that's the end of my soapbox talk. So how do we move from the basement to the penthouse? We've been at this for over a year. We've been at this for a long time. So our thinking and our actions have kind of become habitual. So we first need to be patient with ourselves as we pause and slow down so that we can be mindful of our thoughts, so that we can notice when we're thinking, oh, I'm being judgy, oh, I'm seeing them as separate, I'm putting names on other people. And we can stop that. And we can shift into that space of love and kindness, compassion. But it requires us to pause, to break the habit and the cycle of the basement thoughts, so we can shift them and change them and move on up to that penthouse. And we can breathe. Breathe with me. With every breath, every deep inhale, every slow exhale, we slow ourselves. We can move inward so that we're not distracted by the noise and confusion of the world. The world would love us to be distracted and stay in this messy ickiness, but I don't know about you, I'm ready to do something different. Yes? Yes. Breathe. I know you're all busy people. You have families and jobs and a lot of things to do. But I bet at least 3 times a day that you can pause and breathe and center and go to that place within and shift to be the consciousness that you would want to contribute to the world. Because I know this about you. You want to contribute good and love and peace and harmony. I know that to be true. And yet we can get so drawn in to something else. So breathe and pause. We can also be grateful. Gratitude shifts our entire being into a state of positivity. Gratitude moves us into buoyancy and lightness. So shout it out. What are you grateful for in this very moment? I'm grateful for a microphone that works. What did you say?
I'm grateful that summer is almost over.
Oh, grateful that summer is almost over. What are you grateful for? Shout it out.
Good health.
Good health. There we go.
To be here.
To be here.
Yes.
Yes. There's at least 10 things that you could just roll off the lips easily of what you're grateful for. So move into that gratitude every time you change a room. You go from one room to another, pause. At this moment, I'm grateful for. And fill your day with gratitude. Be forgiving. Be very forgiving. And we might need to begin that forgiveness with ourselves. To forgive me for having those thoughts that are judgmental, that are critical, that are narrow-minded, that are self-focused. Release that space to allow something better to rise. Be really liberal with your forgiveness of others. Their opinions don't align with yours, that's okay. Remember, we are all one. That's the next thing we can do. We can remember. We can remember that right here and now we are at the perfect time and the perfect place to live these unity principles in ways that we may never have been called to live them before. When you look around and see what's happening in our world, in our city, in our state, in our homes, find that presence of God, however you can. Find that presence. Sit with whatever troubles you until you find that presence of God. Call a dear friend, talk it through, and get some help in seeing God's presence in the here and now. When you move through your day and you look at others, see the face of God. No matter what their thoughts are about anything in this world, because those thoughts don't matter. What really matters is that we acknowledge our connection with others, that we see the Christ, the good, the divine in every single person we encounter. You may have some buttons pushed along the way, but that's okay. That's a growth opportunity. Let your buttons be pushed and stretch and grow all that you can. And we remember that we have the power to create our experience. We have the power to contribute to that conscious collective in ways that we choose to, not by default, not by habit, but by conscious choice of what we pour into it. And on a good day, we can be very successful at pouring in love, kindness, and compassion. And we're having a human experience. We have our moments that as we practice all of these principles and spiritual practices, we get better at noticing, oops, there goes that thought. Nope, I don't want to hang on to that thought. I want to choose A penthouse thought. So your basement thought be gone. And we pray. We pray, which is the unity fourth principle. And we pray because prayer changes things. Prayer changes me. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore reminds us that prayer is communion with us and God. Prayer is that sacred, holy place of communion with God. So prayer takes place inside. Prayer takes place in the depth of our being. Deepest place of us is where prayer occurs. Charles Fillmore says prayer is the most highly accelerated mind action. That would be a penthouse thought. Prayer is how we synchronize our mind with divine mind. It's how we recognize the divinity of ourself and yield our divinity to divine mind. So pray. Pray often. In fact, follow the advice of Paul in his letters to the people of Thessalonica. Pray without ceasing. Pray always. In unity, our way of praying is affirmative. We put aside supplication and beseeching and begging, and we remember who and what we are. We are made with that spark of divinity. We are divine beings. Yes, we're having very human experiences, but we are spiritual, divine beings. And we state what it is we wish to see. We state what it is, knowing that anything that we desire already exists in spirit. If we can think it, it's already there. We align our mind with God mind to realize and make manifest our heart's desires. This is already there. We opened our mind, body, and spirit to be recipients of our good. We can pray the days away, and we can moan that our prayers are not answered because we're closed. Our mind, our hearts are closed. And when we open mind, body, and spirit, we are in receiving mode. Our prayers draw from that infinite good of divine mind and bring our life into existence. We pray from a place of recognizing the divine consciousness that's moving. That divine consciousness that already exists in all beings and in all creation. We pray through the nature of the Christ that is our true nature, just as it was the nature of Jesus. We pray affirming and acknowledging unlimited abundance of all things already is in the world. We pray attuning our heart and our mind with divine mind. We pray and then we live wisely and with discernment, and we live in ways that support the prayer that we've just spoken. We pray for safe travels. And then we don't tear off down the road at 90 miles an hour in the neighborhood avoiding all stop signs. We pray for safe travels, and then we drive in ways that are safe. We observe speed limits. We stay alert for other drivers and pedestrians and children and animals that might make their way into traffic. We We observe those speed limits. We yield. We stop at stop signs. We observe all the traffic laws. So we live in a way that supports our prayer to have safe travels. So prayers are action, both in speaking the prayer and living into the prayer in a way that allows it to become manifest. And when we pray as we are instructed in Matthew 7:7. And when you pray, go into your room and close the door. We go into that secret place, the depth of our inner realm. We turn our attention inward. We shut out the outer world. We quiet our senses. And we rest in the sacred spaciousness of stillness. Remembering that prayer changes things. Prayer changes us. Shall we pray? Divine presence, Spirit that is holy, we give thanks for this gathering this morning. We give thanks for the ability to connect at a distance, to come into people's homes, to feel that connection of spirit, to gather here at Unity on Greenville and feel that energetic connection. We give thanks for these spiritual truths and teachings that allow us to move and live in this world from our highest way of being. We are gentle and kind with ourselves and others as we navigate life lived in the divine. Remembering always our humanness and always calling ourselves upward and onward to live that divine that we are. To live from that highest consciousness that takes us straight to the penthouse. That divine consciousness that we contribute to the lives of all others. For this and so much more, we give thanks. We let it be so that it can become. So it is, and amen. Left hand over your right shoulder. Right hand over your left shoulder. And a big, hearty squeeze. You have been hugged and loved by me. Namaste.